Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. I don't know what's worse, being trapped in her body or realizing I'm starting to like it. It's a thought that keeps me up at night, long after everything went back to normal. But normal doesn't feel normal anymore. How could it? After you've lived behind someone else's eyes, worn their skin, and felt the world through their heart, your own reality starts to feel like a poorly fitting suit. To understand, you have to go back to the beginning, back to a stupid argument, a flash of headlights, and the moment my life shattered and reformed into something I never could have imagined. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how I became Maya. It all started, as most disasters do, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. The air in the lecture hall was thick with the scent of stale coffee and student anxiety. We were in our final year of college, and the pressure was on. Our capstone project, a presentation on modern marketing ethics, was worth a huge chunk of our grade, and I, being the overachiever I was, had taken the lead. My problem wasn't the work, it was the people. Specifically, it was Maya. Maya was, well, she was Maya. She was the kind of girl who seemed to float through life on a cloud of perfume and effortless charm. Her notes were color-coded, her hair always fell in perfect waves, and she had a habit of tilting her head and smiling in a way that made professors forget she'd just asked a completely irrelevant question. To me, she was frustratingly superficial, all style, no substance. "We can't just present the data, Ethan," she said, her voice a little too loud in the quiet study room. She tapped a perfectly manicured nail on the pie chart I'd meticulously created. "It's dry. We need to connect with the audience on an emotional level. Tell a story." I rolled my eyes. I couldn't help it. This isn't a creative writing class, Maya. It's a business presentation. They want facts, figures, and a clear ROI analysis, not a bedtime story. "People are emotional beings," she countered, her bright eyes flashing with annoyance. "They don't buy products, they buy feelings. You'd know that if you ever looked up from your spreadsheets." The barb hit its mark. I saw myself as pragmatic, efficient, a future leader. She saw me as a robot. It was a theme in our interactions. I thought she was flaky. She thought I was cold. We were oil and water, forced into the same beaker for a group project. "My spreadsheets are what's going to get us an A," I retorted, my tone sharper than I intended. "While you're busy picking out the right font to express sadness, I'll be ensuring our conclusions are actually sound." Her face fell. The playful spark in her eyes flickered and died, replaced by a genuine hurt that caught me off guard. You know, for someone so smart, you can be really cruel. "Ethan." She gathered her things, a pastel pink laptop and a notebook that probably had more doodles than words, and stood up. She didn't storm out. She just left, a quiet sort of dignity in the way her shoulders were set. The silence she left behind was heavy, thick with my own unspoken regret. I hated fighting, but I hated being wrong even more. And some small, nagging part of me suspected she might have had a point. I shoved the feeling down. Emotions were messy, inefficient. I didn't have time for them. Later that afternoon, I was driving home, the argument still replaying in my head. Rain had started to fall, smearing the afternoon light across the windshield. The wipers beat a frantic, hypnotic rhythm. I was recrafting my arguments in my head, thinking of all the smarter, sharper things I should have said. I was so lost in my own self-righteousness that I didn't see her. She was crossing the street, halfway through the crosswalk. She had a flimsy umbrella that was doing little to protect her from the downpour. She looked up, her eyes wide with panic as my car skidded on the wet pavement. I slammed on the brakes. The world became a symphony of screeching tires, the sickening crunch of metal, and then a sudden, jarring impact that threw me forward. My head hit the steering wheel, and the world dissolved into a silent, swirling blackness. My first sensation upon waking was confusion. A gentle, persistent beeping sound pulsed somewhere to my left. The air smelled sterile. a chemical clean that tickled my nose. I tried to lift my hand to rub my eyes, but my arm felt strange lighter, more slender. The movement was clumsy, unfamiliar. Something was tickling my cheek. Hair, a lot of it, long. Silky strands were fanned out across the pillow. I'd always kept my hair short, a military-style buzz cut. This made no sense. I blinked my eyes open. The ceiling was white, acoustic tiles with faint water stains, a hospital. That much I could piece together. The accident? Maya. Was she okay? I tried to sit up, and that's when the world truly tilted on its axis. The feeling was indescribable. It was a complete and utter sensory betrayal. My center of gravity was different. My shoulders felt narrow, my hips wider. There was a soft weight on my chest that moved when I moved, a sensation so alien it sent a jolt of pure panic through me. I looked down. Under the thin hospital gown, the body was not my own. I saw the gentle curve of breasts, the pale, smooth skin of a stomach that wasn't mine, legs that were slender and hairless. My hands flew to my chest, and the soft, yielding flesh beneath my fingertips sent another wave of electric shock through my system. No, I whispered, but the voice that came out was not mine either. It was higher, softer, a voice I'd heard just hours ago, arguing about emotional connection. It was Maya's voice. My breathing hitched. This had to be a dream, a nightmare brought on by a concussion. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted to 10, praying that when I opened them, I'd be back in my own skin. 1, 2, 3. The soft weight on my chest was still there. The long hair still tickled my neck. 10. I opened my eyes. Nothing had changed. With a surge of desperate energy, I threw the blanket off and swung my legs over the side of the bed. My feet touched the cold linoleum floor. I stood up, wobbly and disoriented, and staggered toward the small bathroom connected to the room. My reflection in the mirror was the final, devastating confirmation. Staring back at me was Maya. Her face, to be exact, her wide, almond-shaped eyes, currently filled with my terror, her full lips, parted in a silent scream, her long, dark hair, tangled and messy from the accident. It was her face, her body, her everything. But the consciousness behind those eyes, the frantic, terrified person looking out, was me, Ethan. I gripped the sink, my knuckles white, my heart hammered against ribs that felt too delicate, too close to the surface. I looked down at her hands. They were small, with pale, oval nails. Not my large, calloused hands. A strangled sob escaped my throat, her throat. Then I heard a groan from the hospital bed next to mine. I turned, my whole body trembling. In the other bed, lying with a bandage wrapped around his head, was a young man with a familiar buzz cut and a strong jaw. He was stirring, his eyes fluttering open. He looked around the room, his gaze hazy and confused. Then his eyes locked onto me. My terror must have been written all over Maya's face, because his expression shifted from confusion to a dawning, horrified recognition. He pushed himself up, his movements stiff but unmistakably my own. He looked down at his hands, my hands, and then back at me. A deep, masculine voice I knew better than my own name filled the small room, thick with disbelief. "Ethan?" he asked. But it wasn't him. It was her. It was Maya, looking at me through my own eyes. And that's when I finally understood. We hadn't just been in an accident. We had swapped bodies. The absolute, undeniable, soul-shattering insanity of it washed over me, and for the first time in my life, I did the only thing that felt rational. I opened Maya's mouth, took a deep breath with her lungs, and I screamed. The scream that ripped from Maya's throat was shrill and panicked, and it brought a nurse running into the room. "What's wrong?" "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes darting between me standing by the sink in Maya's body and Maya sitting up in my bed. Maya, to her credit, recovered faster than I did. She, or rather, he. My body pointed a finger at me. "She's just disoriented from the accident," my own voice said, sounding surprisingly calm and measured. "We both are." The nurse checked my vitals, then Maya's, clucking her tongue and telling us we were lucky to have gotten away with just a few bumps and bruises. "You'll both be discharged by tomorrow morning," she said with a professional smile, completely oblivious to the silent, screaming horror passing between the two beds. As soon as she left, the dam broke. "What is happening?" I hissed, the words feeling foreign and flimsy in this new mouth. "How is this possible?" "I have no idea," Maya replied, her voice rumbling from my chest. She ran my hand through my short hair, a look of profound bewilderment on her face. "One minute I'm crossing the street. The next I wake up and I'm you." She looked down at my body, and I have to say, this is really, really weird. Weird. This is a Category 5, full-blown nightmare. I paced the small room, my movements awkward. I kept bumping my new, wider hips into the furniture. We have to tell someone, the doctors, the police. And say what she shot back, her logic infuriatingly sound, especially coming from my mouth, that we switched bodies. They'll lock us up in a psychiatric ward and throw away the key. No, Ethan, we can't tell anyone, not until we figure out what happened and how to switch back. She was right, as insane as it sounded. She was absolutely right. The world doesn't have a protocol for this. We were on our own. A cold dread settled in my stomach, heavier than any physical injury. "So what do we do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Maya looked at me, a strange, determined light in her eyes. "For now," she said slowly, "we play the part. I'll be you, and you'll have to be me." The next morning, we were discharged. Maya's parents picked us up. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, being hugged by two strangers who thought I was their daughter, all while my own body stood beside me, making awkward small talk with them. "You gave us such a scare, honey," Mrs. Davis said, stroking my Maya's hair. Her touch was gentle and loving, and it sent a confusing pang through me. I just nodded, unable to speak, terrified that the wrong voice or the wrong words would give me away. Maya, meanwhile, was handling it like a pro. She was charming and reassuring, telling them he was fine, just a little shaken up. She was a much better actor than I was. When they dropped Maya in my body off at my apartment, she gave me a look that was both an apology and a warning. "Her parents are taking you to her place. Her roommate, Chloe, is there. Just try to act normal." "Normal," I squeaked. "Nothing about this is normal?" "Fake it," she said, and then she was gone, leaving me in the back seat with Maya's worried parents. Maya's apartment was exactly as I'd imagined it. It was bright and airy, with throw pillows on the couch and fairy lights strung around the windows. It smelled faintly of vanilla and lavender. A cheerful red-headed girl who I assumed was Chloe greeted me at the door with a bone-crushing hug. "Oh my God, Maya, I was so worried. Are you okay?" "Fine," I mumbled, trying to extricate myself from her embrace. "You sound weird," she said, her brow furrowing. "Your voice is all raspy." "Sore throat," I improvised, my mind racing, from the screaming. It seemed to satisfy her. She led me into Maya's room, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. It was a sanctuary of femininity. The walls were a soft blush pink, and a large vanity table was covered in an arsenal of bottles, jars, and brushes that looked more like surgical tools than anything else. And then there was the closet. It was a walk-in closet, and it was overflowing with clothes, dresses, skirts, blouses in every color imaginable, and shoes. So many shoes. Maya's phone buzzed. It was a text from my number. "Maya, her parents just left. How are you holding up?" "Me, I'm in her room. It looks like a cotton candy factory exploded. I don't know how to do this. Maya, you have to. We have class tomorrow, and you can't show up in a hospital gown. Chloe is probably going to try to help you get ready. The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Getting ready, that meant clothes, makeup, all of it. As if on cue, Chloe poked her head in. Hey, you want me to help you pick something comfy to wear? You look like you're about to pass out. Before I could protest, she was rummaging through the closet. She pulled out a pair of soft-looking leggings and a loose, oversized sweater. It seemed manageable. Then she opened a drawer, and my brain short-circuited. It was filled with underwear, lacy, silky, colorful pieces of fabric that looked impossibly small and complicated. Chloe grabbed a matching set of soft pink bra and panties and handed them to me. Here you go, she said cheerfully. I'll give you some privacy. She closed the door, leaving me alone with the clothes. I stared at the bra in my hand. It was a delicate contraption of lace, underwire, and a series of hooks and eyes that seemed designed by a medieval torturer. I had seen them before, obviously, but I had never comprehended their engineering. Taking a deep breath, I slipped off the hospital gown. The cold air in the room hit my new skin, and I shivered, goosebumps rising on my arms. I felt exposed, vulnerable in a way I never had before. I managed the panties easily enough. They were just underwear, albeit much flimsier than I was used to. The fabric was so light it was almost like wearing nothing at all. The bra was another story. I tried to put it on like a vest, fumbling with the clasp behind my back. My fingers were clumsy, and I couldn't get the tiny hooks to line up with the eyes. After 5 minutes of fruitless struggle, I felt a surge of pure frustration. It was just a piece of clothing. Why was it so hard? I remembered seeing girls in movies clasping it in the front and then twisting it around. I tried that. The cups were in the front, the clasp within sight. With a triumphant click, I got it hooked. Then I began the slow, awkward process of rotating it around my torso and hoisting the straps onto my shoulders. The sensation was bizarre. The underwire pressed firmly against my ribs, and the straps dug slightly into my shoulders. It felt restrictive, like a harness. The weight of her breasts, which I had been subconsciously ignoring, was now supported, lifted. It changed my posture, forcing my shoulders back. It was a constant, undeniable physical reminder that this body was not mine. I pulled on the leggings and the sweater. The fabric was soft against my skin, but I was acutely aware of every point of contact. The cling of the leggings on my thighs, the way the sweater draped over my chest. I looked in the full-length mirror on the closet door. A stranger stared back, a tired, pale girl drowning in a pink sweater. Me, not me. My phone buzzed again. Maya, don't forget her skincare routine. The blue bottle is cleanser. The pink one is moisturizer. And for God's sake, be gentle around the eyes. I looked at the vanity. The sheer number of products was dizzying. I found the bottles she mentioned and went into the bathroom. I splashed water on my face and rubbed the cleanser in. It foamed up, smelling of green tea. It felt nice, refreshing. The moisturizer was cool and soothing. I was so focused on the simple, mechanical task that for a moment, I almost forgot the terrifying reality of my situation. When I was done, Chloe was waiting in the living room with 2 mugs of tea. Feeling better, she asked. I nodded, sinking into the plush couch, a little. Good, because you're going to need your strength. Jessica is throwing a welcome back from the dead party for you on Friday. My blood ran cold. A party with Maya's friends, people who knew her, who would expect me to act like her, talk like her, smile like her. Oh, I said, the single word feeling heavy and inadequate. Great. Chloe didn't seem to notice my lack of enthusiasm. She just launched into a story about some drama with her history class. And I sat there, sipping my tea, nodding in what I hoped were the right places. I was a spy in a foreign land, and my cover was a flimsy pink sweater and the scent of green tea cleanser. That night, I lay in Maya's bed, tangled in sheets that smelled like her. It was a soft, floral scent that was everywhere in this apartment, a scent that was now inextricably linked to my own skin. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my own face staring back at me with Maya's concerned expression. I felt a profound sense of loss, not just for my body, but for the simplicity of my old life, the life where my biggest problem was a group presentation. I had been so sure of who I was, Ethan, the smart, no-nonsense guy who had it all figured out. Now, I wasn't even sure what my own name was anymore. Deep down, under the layers of fear and shame and anger, there was another feeling, a tiny, persistent flicker of something else, curiosity. I was living the one experience no man could ever truly have. I was seeing the world from the other side, as I drifted into an uneasy sleep. I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to walk down the street in this body, to feel the eyes of the world on me, to exist not as Ethan, but as Maya. The thought was terrifying, and in a way I was not yet ready to admit, just a little bit thrilling. The next morning was a trial by fire. The prospect of going to class as Maya was daunting, but the prospect of getting ready for class as Maya was a Herculean task. Chloe, bless her oblivious heart, decided I was too fragile to be left to my own devices. "You still look a little pale," she announced, bustling into the room with a makeup bag that could have supplied a small theater production. "We need to put some life back in your face." She sat me down at the vanity, and I found myself staring at Maya's reflection again. My reflection, the dark circles under her eyes, were mine, a product of a sleepless, anxiety-ridden night. "Okay, first things first," Chloe said, dabbing a cool, liquid substance onto my face with a sponge. "Foundation. This will even out your skin tone." The process was an assault on the senses, the feeling of the sponge bouncing on my skin, the floral scent of the foundation, the soft brush dusting powder over my cheeks. She curled Maya's long eyelashes with a terrifying metal clamp, then carefully painted them with a black, tar-like substance from a wand, mascara. The wand tickled, and I fought the urge to sneeze. "Now, just a little blush to give you a healthy glow," she chirped, swirling a pink powder onto my cheekbones. "Finally." She uncapped a tube of lip gloss. "Pucker up." The gloss was sticky and sweet, and it made my lips feel unnaturally slick. When she was done, she spun my chair around to face the mirror. The transformation was startling. The pale, tired girl from before was gone. In her place was Maya. Her skin was flawless, her cheeks had a rosy tint, her eyes looked bigger and brighter, framed by dark lashes, and her lips glistened. It was a mask, a beautiful, perfectly applied mask that hid the terrified man underneath. "See so much better," Chloe said, beaming. Next was the wardrobe. She vetoed my suggestion of another sweater and leggings. "It's a presentation day. Silly. You have to look put together." She pulled out a navy blue A-line skirt that ended just above the knee, a simple white silk blouse, and a pair of sheer black pantyhose. My stomach dropped. Pantyhose seemed even more complicated than the bra. Getting them on was a delicate, frustrating dance. The material was impossibly thin, and I was terrified of ripping it with a clumsy move. It clung to my skin with a weird, static energy, a second skin that felt both smooth and restrictive. The blouse was simple enough, but the silk felt unnervingly soft against my skin, a constant reminder of the body it was covering. The final piece of the puzzle was the shoes. Chloe handed me a pair of low black heels. "Just a little lift," she said. "You can handle these." I slipped them on. My feet were forced into an unnatural angle, and all my weight shifted to the balls of my feet. I stood up, wobbling like a newborn fawn. My entire posture changed. To keep my balance, I had to stand up straighter, engage my core, and take smaller, more deliberate steps. Walking out of the apartment was like stepping onto a stage. The world felt different from this new height, this new perspective. The click-clack of the heels on the pavement was a constant announcement of my presence, and people noticed. Men, in particular, their eyes would flick over me, a quick, assessing glance that took in my face, my chest, my legs. It wasn't overtly hostile, but it was constant, a low-level hum of observation that I had never experienced as a man, as Ethan. I was anonymous, invisible unless I wanted to be seen. As Maya, I was public property, a visual for mass consumption. It made me feel incredibly self-conscious. I found myself pulling the hem of my skirt down, crossing my arms over my chest. The shame was a hot flush that spread from my neck to my cheeks, and I was grateful for the blush Chloe had applied to hide it. Class was excruciating. I sat in my usual seat, but of course, it wasn't my usual seat. It was Maya's. I saw my own body walk in and take a seat on the other side of the room. Maya gave me a subtle nod, a silent message of encouragement. When it was our turn to present, my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I walked to the front of the room, my steps unsteady in the heels. I could feel every eye on me. I opened my mouth to speak, to deliver the cold, hard facts I had prepared. And Maya's voice came out, soft, melodic, and a little shaky. I stumbled through my part of the presentation, my mind a blur. I was so focused on not tripping, on sounding like her, on remembering to breathe, that the content was almost an afterthought. Then it was Maya's turn. She and my body stood up and took the floor, and she was brilliant. She took my dry data and wove it into a compelling story. She used humor and anecdotes. She made eye contact with the audience, her gestures confident and open. She was using my voice, my body. But the charisma was all her. She had connected with them on an emotional level, just like she'd wanted to. And they loved it. We got a standing ovation. After class, our professor pulled us aside. "Excellent work, both of you," he said, beaming. "Ethan, that was the most passionate I've ever seen you. And Maya, your analysis was incredibly sharp. You two make a fantastic team." The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. On the way out, Maya as me caught up with me. "See, I told you we needed some emotion," she said, a smug grin on my face. It was disconcerting to see my own features used to express an emotion I rarely showed. Yeah, you were right," I mumbled, looking at the ground. I was still reeling from the experience of being looked at, of being so completely out of my element. "Hey," she said, her tone softening. She put a hand on my shoulder, her shoulder. "You did great. I know this is hard." "It's more than hard," I said, the words tumbling out. I feel like I'm an imposter in my own life, except it's not even my life. The way people look at me, the clothes, everything, it's too much." "I know," she said quietly. "It's different for me, too. It's like, suddenly, no one pays attention to what I'm wearing or how my hair looks. They just listen to what I have to say. It's freeing." We stood there for a moment in silence, two strangers inhabiting each other's lives, beginning to understand the worlds the other came from. The chasm between us, once filled with arguments and misunderstandings, was now being bridged by a shared, impossible secret. The walk back to Maya's apartment was different. I was still self-conscious, but something had shifted. I started to notice other women, the way they walked, the way they carried themselves with a confidence I couldn't yet fathom. I saw the shared, subtle nods between them, the small smiles exchanged with strangers. It was a silent language I was only just beginning to learn. The curiosity I'd felt the night before was growing, pushing back against the fear. This wasn't just a nightmare anymore. It was an education. I was learning what it meant to navigate the world in this body, with all its vulnerabilities and its unexpected strengths. And as I unlocked the door to her vanilla-scented apartment and kicked off the painful heels, I had to admit a dangerous, unsettling truth to myself. A small part of me was starting to pay attention. I was starting to learn, and I wasn't entirely sure I wanted the lesson to end. Friday night arrived with the kind of dreadful inevitability of a final exam you haven't studied for. The party, Jessica's welcome back party for Maya. For me. My phone had been buzzing all day with texts from Maya, who had appointed herself my long-distance transformation coach. Maya, remember what we talked about? Smile more, ask people questions about themselves, and for the love of God, don't start talking about market capitalization ratios. Me, very funny. What am I supposed to wear? Chloe is trying to put me in something with sequins. Maya, no sequins. Go for the little black dress, the one in the garment bag. It's classic. You can't go wrong. Following her instructions, I found the dress. It was a simple, sleeveless sheath dress made of a soft, stretchy fabric that clung in ways that made me deeply uncomfortable. It was elegant, I had to admit, but it was also incredibly revealing. There was no hiding in this. Chloe helped with the preparations. Her excitement infectious. She did my makeup with more dramatic flair for the evening, a smoky eyeshadow that made Maya's eyes look mysterious, and a bold red lipstick that felt like a declaration. She helped me with my hair, pinning it up in a loose, elegant twist that left a few tendrils to frame my face. The final touch was a pair of strappy, high-heeled sandals. They were even taller and more precarious than the ones I'd worn to class. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the person staring back. It was Maya, but amplified, polished, confident, and alluring. I looked like the kind of woman I would have been too intimidated to talk to just a week ago, and I was her. The disconnect was dizzying. The party was in full swing when we arrived. Music pulsed from a downtown apartment, and the air was thick with the scent of perfume and beer. I was immediately swallowed by a group of Maya's friends, all hugging me, telling me how glad they were that I was okay. I smiled, nodded, and murmured thanks, feeling like a fraud with every breath. I managed to find a corner to lurk in, nursing a cup of punch and trying to look like I belonged. Maya's coaching was a mantra in my head. Smile. Ask questions. Don't be weird. Maya, there you are. I turned to see a guy approaching me. He was tall, with an easy smile and friendly brown eyes. I vaguely recognized him from one of Maya's photos. This was Ryan. Ryan, hi, I said, my voice coming out a little breathless. I was so sorry to hear about your accident. You look amazing, though better than ever. Actually, he leaned against the wall next to me, his proximity making the small corner feel even smaller. Thanks, I managed. I'm feeling better. Good. His smile was warm, and it was aimed directly at me, at Maya. You just seemed different tonight, in a good way, calmer. My mind raced. Was I acting too calm? Was Maya normally more hyper? Just taking it easy, I said, trying for a casual tone. We talked for a while. He did most of the talking, telling me about his internship, a funny story about his dog. I just listened, nodding and laughing when it seemed appropriate. It was surprisingly easy. He didn't seem to expect me to be brilliant or witty. He just seemed to enjoy my company. At one point, he reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from my cheek. His fingers were warm, and the light touch sent a bizarre jolt straight through me. It wasn't unpleasant. It was a spark. My skin tingled where he'd touched me, and I felt a blush creep up my neck, a genuine, uncontrollable blush. This body was reacting on its own, with instincts I didn't possess. My phone vibrated in the small clutch I was carrying. I excused myself and slipped into the relative quiet of the hallway to check it. Maya, how's it going? Are you surviving? Me barely. Ryan is here. He's nice. Maya, ha. I knew he'd find you. He's had a crush on me for ages. Just be cool. Don't encourage him too much. I typed back, my fingers fumbling on the small screen. Me, I think I just blushed for real. This is so weird. My body is having reactions I can't control. A new message popped up almost instantly. Maya, welcome to my world. Now go back out there. And Ethan, don't do anything that's going to make me regret being in your body when we switch back. The playful warning sent a strange mix of emotions through me. It was a reminder of our situation, but it also felt oddly intimate, a shared joke over an impossibly strange reality. I went back to the party. Ryan's eyes found me immediately. He bought me another drink, and we moved to the balcony to get some fresh air. The city lights spread out below us like a blanket of scattered diamonds. You really do seem different, he said again, his voice lower now. There's a quietness about you tonight. It's really beautiful. He was standing closer now. I could smell his cologne, a clean, woody scent. My heart was hammering, a frantic bird trapped in a cage of delicate ribs. Was this what flirting felt like from this side? This intense, nerve-wracking, thrilling awareness of another person. As Ethan, my approach to women had been direct, almost like a business proposal. I was confident. I knew what I wanted, and I laid it out. This was different. This was a dance of subtle signals, of unspoken invitations, and this body, Maya's body, knew the steps far better than I did. He lifted his hand and gently touched my arm. Are you cold? A little, I admitted, though the shiver that ran through me had nothing to do with the temperature. His touch was electric, and my body leaned into it ever so slightly. A subconscious, instinctual movement. He took a half step closer, his gaze dropping to my lips, my red-painted lips. For a terrifying, exhilarating second, I thought he was going to kiss me. My mind was screaming, no, stop. This is wrong, but my body was frozen, caught in a state of suspended animation. Half fear, half anticipation. What would it be like to be kissed as a woman? The thought was a lightning strike, shocking and illuminating. But the moment passed, he just smiled, a little sadly, and dropped his hand. We should probably get back inside. The tension broke. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Later that night, Ryan offered to walk me and Chloe home. The walk was quiet, the three of us moving through the sleeping city streets. When we got to the apartment, Chloe said her goodbyes and went inside, leaving me and Ryan standing at the door. I had a really good time tonight, Maya, he said. Me too, Ryan, I replied, and I was surprised to find I meant it. He hesitated for a moment, then leaned in and kissed my cheek. It was a soft, brief press of his lips against my skin, but it felt like it branded me. Good night, he whispered, and then he was gone. I stood there for a long moment, one hand rising to touch the spot on my cheek where he'd kissed me. It felt warm, tingly. Inside, I went straight to Maya's room and closed the door. I walked to the vanity and stared at my reflection. The smoky eye makeup was a little smudged. The elegant hairdo was coming undone, and the red lipstick was faded. The woman in the mirror looked softer, more vulnerable than the one who had left for the party hours ago. Her eyes, my eyes, were wide and confused. I touched my lips, tracing their outline. They were soft. They were her lips, but the tingle of anticipation, the memory of that near kiss on the balcony, that was mine. The feeling belonged to me, Ethan, filtered through her senses. What is happening to me? I whispered to the reflection. The line between where Maya ended and I began was blurring. The mask was starting to feel less like a costume and more like a second skin. I had spent the night being desired, being seen as beautiful, and my body had responded in a way my mind couldn't deny. It had been nice, frighteningly, confusingly, undeniably nice. I sank onto the edge of her bed, my head in my hands. Maya's warning echoed in my ears. Don't do anything I'll regret. The real danger, I was beginning to realize, wasn't that I would do something to betray her. It was that I was starting to feel, to react. to be her, and that scared me more than anything else. The days following the party were a strange blend of routine and revelation. I learned the rhythms of Maya's life, her morning yoga, the specific way she liked her coffee, the group chat with her friends that was a constant stream of memes and gossip. I was getting better at the performance. The makeup was less clumsy, the walk in heels more steady. I was learning her mannerisms, the way she would tuck her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the light laugh she used when she was nervous. But the better I got at being her, the more I felt like I was losing myself. I'd catch myself thinking about things I'd never cared about before, like whether a certain color washed me out, or the subtle social dynamics in her friend group. My own interests, my own ambitions, felt distant, like memories from another life. Maya and I met up a few times, always in a quiet corner of the campus library. It was bizarre to sit across from my own face and have a conversation. "We need to find a way to switch back," I said during one of these meetings. My voice an urgent whisper. "I can't do this much longer. I feel like I'm going crazy." "I know," she said, her expression serious in my features. "I've been doing research, legends, folklore, weird science, nothing. It's like it's never happened before." She sighed, running a hand through her short hair. "I miss my body. Ethan, I miss feeling pretty." The confession surprised me. I had assumed she was enjoying the freedom of being a man. "But you said it was freeing," I countered. "It is, in some ways," she admitted. "But I also feel invisible. People don't smile at me on the street. No one holds the door open. I feel clunky, and people expect me to be tough all the time. It's exhausting." Her words resonated with me. We were both experiencing the downsides of our new lives, the parts the other had always taken for granted. We were living each other's prisons as much as each other's freedoms. "There has to be a cause," I insisted, my logical mind desperate for a variable, a catalyst. "Think, Maya. Anything strange happen on the day of the accident? Anything at all?" She scrunched up my face in concentration. "No. It was a totally normal day. I went to class. I argued with a handsome but infuriatingly stubborn guy," she said, a small smile playing on my lips. "Then I went shopping for a bit before heading home." "Shopping where?" "Just that little vintage shop downtown. The one with all the weird trinkets and old books. I didn't buy anything, but I did pick something up." Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. The necklace?" "What necklace?" "I didn't buy it. I just found it on the floor by the counter. It was this weird, antique-looking thing, a silver chain with a smooth, gray stone that was warm to the touch. I put it on, just to see how it looked. I meant to give it to the shop owner. But then my phone rang, and I got distracted. I walked out with it still on." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a dawning horror. "Ethan, I was still wearing it when you hit me." A jolt went through me. "Are you wearing it now?" My body reached up and felt around my neck. "No, it's not here." My hand, Maya's hand, flew to my own neck, and there, tucked under the collar of my blouse, I felt it, a thin, cool chain. I pulled it out, a single, smooth, gray stone rested in the hollow of my throat. It was strangely warm against my skin. "It's here," I breathed. "I'm wearing it." We stared at each other, the impossible, mystical answer dangling between us. It was insane. It defied all logic, but it was the only lead we had. That evening, I was searching Maya's room, looking for anything that might give us a clue, a receipt from the shop. Anything. I was rummaging through her desk drawer when I found it. It was a leather-bound journal, tucked away beneath a stack of old notebooks. Her diary. I knew I shouldn't. It was the ultimate invasion of her privacy, but I was desperate. My hand trembled as I opened it. Her handwriting was a beautiful, flowing script. The pages were filled with her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. I read about her frustrations with her art history class, her crush on a barista, her arguments with her parents. It was a window into her soul, and it was so much more complex and deep than the superficial girl I had dismissed. I found the entry from the day of the accident. Had a massive fight with Ethan today. He can be so infuriating. He's brilliant. But he acts like having feelings is a design flaw. It's like he's built a fortress around himself and won't let anyone in. Sometimes, when he's not being a jerk. I see this flicker of something else in his eyes. A loneliness. It makes me want to understand him. Maybe that's why I push his buttons so much. I stopped reading, my chest tight. She didn't just see me as a cold robot. She saw something more, something I barely admitted to myself. I kept reading, and my eyes landed on a passage about the necklace. Found the strangest necklace today at Curios and Knickknacks. It practically buzzed in my hand. The old woman at the counter gave me a weird look when I picked it up. She said it was an empathy stone, and that it helps you walk in another's shoes. She sounded half crazy, but I can't deny it feels special. I wonder what it would be like to really, truly understand someone else's world. Empathy stone, walk in another's shoes. It was all there. This wasn't random. It was some kind of bizarre, mystical lesson. I called Maya immediately, my voice shaking as I read the diary entries to her. "The shop," she said, her voice filled with awe. "We have to go back to the shop." The next day, we went. The shop was a dusty, cluttered place that smelled of incense and old paper. The old woman from Maya's diary was behind the counter. She had piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right through us. We explained our situation, stumbling over the impossible words. We were in an accident. Maya as me started, and we think this necklace, it did something. I held it out. The woman didn't look surprised. She simply took the necklace, her wrinkled fingers closing around the stone. "The stone doesn't create the path," she said, her voice a low, raspy hum. "It only opens the door when the desire is already there, a desire to understand, a desire to be understood." She looked from my face to Maya's, then back again. You were both shouting at the universe, in your own way. It simply listened. "Can you change us back?" I pleaded. "The stone doesn't reverse its lessons. It only completes them," she said cryptically. "To return, you must complete the journey. You must stand where it began, under the light of the same moon, and truly see the person in front of you. You must offer up the one thing you've learned about yourself by being them." It sounded like a riddle from a fantasy novel, but at this point, I was willing to try anything. The light of the same moon. The accident happened on a Tuesday, just before the new moon. The next new moon was tomorrow night. That night, Maya came over to her apartment. Chloe was out, so we had the place to ourselves. We sat in the living room, the weight of the coming ritual hanging in the air. "So," Maya said, breaking the silence, "we have to offer up something we've learned about ourselves." She looked at me, her expression unreadable in my face. "What have you learned?" "Ethan." I thought about the past few weeks, about the fear, the shame, the surprising moments of connection. I thought about the constant feeling of being watched, of being vulnerable. I thought about Ryan's gentle touch and the confusing warmth it sparked in me. I've learned, I started, the words feeling heavy and important. I've learned that I was a coward. She looked surprised. "What do you mean?" I always thought being strong meant never showing weakness, never feeling anything. I built walls, just like you wrote in your diary. I was so afraid of being seen as soft or emotional because I thought that meant I was weak. I looked down at her delicate hands, resting in my lap, but living like this, as you, it takes a different kind of strength to be open, to be vulnerable, to navigate a world that is constantly judging you. That's not weakness. It's a quiet kind of courage I never understood. My voice cracked on the last word. A tear slipped down my cheek, tracing a path through the foundation I had applied that morning. I didn't bother to wipe it away. Maya in my body reached across the coffee table and took my hand. Her touch was firm, grounding. It was my own hand, but it felt like hers. "You just learned the one thing I've spent my whole life trying to believe," she said softly. Her eyes, my eyes were shining with unshed tears. I always felt like I was too much, too emotional, too sensitive. I thought I needed to be tougher, more like you. But being you, it's lonely. Ethan, you carry so much on your shoulders, and you never let anyone help. We sat there in silence for a long time, holding hands, two souls in the wrong bodies who had finally truly seen each other. The fortress I had built around my heart had crumbled, and in its place was a raw, aching empathy. I wasn't just wearing Maya's skin anymore. I felt like I had touched her soul, and in doing so, I had finally been forced to face my own. The next night, we stood at the intersection where our lives had collided. It was just after midnight, and the street was deserted. A sliver of a new moon hung in the inky sky, casting a weak, silvery light on the wet pavement. It looked just as it had on the night of the accident. I was holding the necklace. The stone was pulsing with a faint, inner warmth. I was wearing one of Maya's simple sundresses, my hair down. Maya, in my body, was in my usual jeans and a t-shirt. We looked like two completely different people, which of course, we were, and yet, we had never been more the same. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice a low rumble from my chest. I nodded, my own throat too tight to speak. A strange mix of hope and sorrow was churning inside me. I wanted my life back. I wanted my body back. But the thought of leaving this one, of leaving her, left an unexpected ache in my chest. "According to the old woman," I said, finding my voice, "we have to truly see each other." I looked at her. I didn't see my own face anymore. I saw Maya. I saw her strength, her empathy, her quiet struggles, her vibrant spirit, all housed in the shell of my body. "I see you, Maya," I said, my voice soft. "I see how you use your heart as a compass. I always thought it was a weakness, but it's your greatest strength." She gave me a watery smile. "I see you too. Ethan. I see the man who hides his kindness behind a wall of logic because he's afraid of getting hurt." My turn. Offer up what I've learned. "Living as you," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage." "And living as you," she replied, her gaze intense. "I learned that it's okay to be strong, that my mind is just as powerful as my emotions." I took a deep breath and fastened the necklace around my neck. The moment the clasp clicked, the stone began to glow. It started as a soft, gray light, then intensified, pulsing in time with my frantic heartbeat. The light grew, spilling out from the stone, enveloping me, then reaching across the space between us to envelop Maya. The world dissolved into a blinding, silent whiteness. I felt a sensation of being pulled apart, atom by atom. It wasn't painful, just disorienting. My consciousness felt like it was floating, untethered from any physical form. I felt my thoughts, my memories, my very essence being sifted and separated from hers. It was a gentle unweaving for a moment. We were neither Ethan nor Maya, but a single, shared consciousness, a perfect blend of logic and emotion, strength and vulnerability. Then just as gently, we were pulled back. The light receded, and the sensation of a body reformed around me. It felt heavier, broader in the shoulders, narrower in the hips, solid. I could feel the rough fabric of jeans against my legs, and the familiar weight of my own hands at my sides. I opened my eyes. The world was back in focus, the streetlights, the damp smell of the pavement, the cool night air. I was standing in the middle of the crosswalk. Across from me stood Maya. She was in her own body, wearing the sundress, her long hair blowing gently in the breeze. She looked beautiful. She looked like herself. I looked down at my hands. They were my hands. I touched my face, felt the familiar stubble on my jaw. I was me again. A wave of relief so powerful it made my knees weak washed over me. I was back. But as the relief subsided, it was replaced by something else, a hollow ache, an emptiness. Maya was looking at me, her own expression a complex mixture of joy and something akin to loss. "We're back," she whispered, her own voice sounding strange and wonderful to her own ears. "We're back," I repeated, my voice deep and familiar. I expected to feel triumphant. I expected to feel whole again. Instead, I felt like a part of me was missing. I had grown accustomed to the lightness of her body, the softness of her skin, the world seen through her eyes. My own body now felt clumsy and coarse. The world, from this height, seemed less vibrant. I thought I would be happier about this. I confessed, the words tasting strange in my own mouth. But I think I miss it. I miss being you. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, and this time, it was all hers. "I know," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I miss being you, too." We didn't say anything else. We just stood there on the asphalt. Two people who had shared the most intimate experience imaginable, now separated again by the unbridgeable gap of our own bodies. The empathy stone had done its work. It had forced us to walk in each other's shoes. And now that we were back in our own, they no longer seemed to fit quite right. The following days were a period of awkward readjustment. We went back to our classes, our friends, our lives, but nothing was the same. The arguments stopped. We would look at each other across a classroom, and a silent, complete understanding would pass between us. We had been through a war together that no one else would ever comprehend. Then, about a week later, I got an email. It was from the university administration. Maya Davis had withdrawn from her classes. She was transferring to a school on the West Coast to be closer to her family. My heart sank. She was leaving, without a goodbye. I rushed to her apartment, but it was already too late. Chloe told me she'd left that morning. Her room was empty, stripped of all the vanilla scents and pink pillows. It was just a blank, sterile space. It felt wrong. Defeated, I went back to my own apartment. Taped to my door was a small, padded envelope with my name on it, written in her elegant, flowing script. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, nestled in a bed of cotton, was the necklace. The gray empathy stone was dull and cool to the touch now, its magic seemingly spent. There was also a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. It said, "Ethan, I'm sorry for leaving like this. I just needed a fresh start, a place where I'm not just the girl from the accident. Thank you for listening, for understanding, for seeing me. I'm leaving this with you, not because I think it will ever work again, but as a reminder of what it felt like. And just in case, if there's ever a day you want to try and understand me one more time, maybe it'll listen. Yours, Maya." I closed my fingers around the smooth, cool stone. I was back in my own body, living my own life. Everything was back to normal. But as I stood there in the hallway of my quiet apartment, I knew that the experience had irrevocably changed me. I had been her. I had felt the world as a woman. I had learned the weight of a glance, the language of a touch, the courage of a tear, and I was better for it. I was more whole. I still have the necklace. It sits in a box on my desk. Most days, I don't even look at it. I'm living my life, moving forward, but sometimes, on a quiet night when the world feels too loud and no one seems to understand, I take it out. I hold the cool, gray stone in my palm, and I remember the scent of her perfume, the feel of a silk blouse on my skin, and the terrifying, wonderful, life-altering freedom of becoming someone else. And a part of me, a part I'll never admit to anyone, wishes it would glow just one more time.